Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, on this snowy Monday night here on the East Coast. I am Lee Del Vecchio, joined by Chad Sherwood and David Griggs. This is the Bracket Racket Hoops HD podcast extravaganza. I'd like to welcome the two gentlemen joining me this evening. I am in Connecticut, where we're all about to die of snow. Chad is in New Jersey, where he is going to get snow that is severely debilitating, but ultimately not fatal.
That's what I'm hoping for, at least. I'm in southern New Jersey. We're only going to hit the very edge of the storm, maybe only 8 to 10 inches of snow here.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of weather. It's the kind of weather that they say
took
can
my whiskey. I can't find my whiskey.
David Griggs, who is not anywhere near snow, but nonetheless angry and demanding whiskey.
I know
I don't have whiskey. I have Yingling.
Look, Chad's got my whiskey. What are you doing?
What'd I do?
Sit there drinking. The balls were deflated. I know the balls were deflated. I know things, and I know the balls were deflated.
David Griggs, you know, this is why we can't give you Fireball. We had a company Christmas party. A couple things went wrong. You know, things happened. You know, we don't need to bring more than one lawyer into this, but we will attempt to move on despite
one of the lawyers
Griggs not having his whiskey.
No, it's okay. I'm not doing wait. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Well, speaking of things that are worth drinking to, or a toast, on Saturday, the inevitable finally happened. We might as well start there. Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski getting his 1,000th career victory. Of course, if you just want to ignore the fact that he spent 2 years selling his assistant coach down the river, throwing him under the bus in the mid-'90s, and pawning off a couple of bad Duke teams' records onto an assistant coach. But as a result, Saturday, the win over St. John's, a come-from-behind win at the Garden for Duke, the 1,000th win of Mike Krzyzewski's career. And, of course, this led to the predictable media, hot takery. David, I'll start with you. Is this a case of, Duke's got the best players, or is this a case of where we really should stand back and admire what's a pretty amazing number?
Kind of a combination of both. How do you not admire it? And I always think Duke is overblown. I think that they're a top 5 team at home and mediocre, decent on the road, but by no means top 5 or top 10. And I always point that out ad nauseum, and I don't know how many times they can fail to make it past the Sweet 16 and how many times they can struggle in the round of 32 or not even get to the Sweet 16. They've only done it twice in the last 10 years. I am super impressed with this edition of the Duke team, probably as impressed, if not more so, than the last team that won the national title against Butler. They've won at St. John's, they've won at Louisville decisively, and they've won at Wisconsin decisively. That is a hell of a profile. And 1,000 wins, I mean, good God, that is, if you win 30 games a year for 30 years, you still have 100 to go. That is unbelievable to sustain that success for that long and to do it against strong competition, which the ACC provides. And Duke does not play cupcakes, or not exclusively cupcakes out of conference either. And it kind of reminds me, again, with the UConn women, what was more impressive, the fact that they won 100 games in a row, or that a third of those were against top 25 teams? Not only has he won 1,000, he's won 1,000 against a lot of good teams. How do you not admire that? I mean, really.
And I don't think you could say it's just that he's had the best players every year, because all the years that Duke has been such a force, he's been the guy that's been there. Duke,
exactly.
I mean, had a few good years in the 60s and stuff. They had a couple good years here and there. They were in a couple Final Fours in the mid-60s before he was there, but the vast majority of this Duke history is Coach K. And if Coach K hadn't been there, would Duke have been even the force they are in the NCAA? Would the Duke-Carolina rivalry be what it was? I don't think so.
You know, it is amazing because we never used the term program builder for Mike Krzyzewski, but I'm glad, Chad, you pointed out, everything about Duke, to the point where they are unquestionably either the greatest or second greatest program in the sport right now, and have been for the last 20 years. That is all Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, look at his circumstances at Duke. They hired him from Army. So if you want to make this argument that he inherited a lot, Duke was going to Army to hire a head coach.
They were
in
bad.
the 1980s. I mean,
they weren't bottom feeders, but weren't they along the lines of a Virginia Tech? What Virginia Tech currently is?
What year did he start at Duke?
I want to say 79, 80. I might be making that.
They were in the tournament in 78. And then in 79 they were in again. I think that 79 team was his first year team.
But if you look at
but before then, the 10 years before then, they stunk.
But if you look at the composure of the ACC in the 70s, when it was unquestionably the greatest conference in the country, I mean, NC State, dominant power program. Virginia wasn't yet a power program, but became early in Mike Krzyzewski's era, was the best program in the ACC, arguably up there with North Carolina, who was an established program. Maryland, what they were. I mean, Duke was far from what it is now. What it is now is because of Mike Krzyzewski.
Yes.
And my biggest argument against him isn't that they're bad on the road. They don't go on the road. They do not play road games. The ACC Big Ten Challenge is a contracted thing that is over the basketball program's head, and they're in the ACC. Outside of that, they just do not play road games. And for me, that's sad because I would like to see Duke test themselves more in that regard. But at the same time, I guess they do play a tough schedule. But I mean, they never, ever, ever go on the road. But that does not take away from the fact that 1,000 wins is an amazing accomplishment. I think the thing that made me most upset in the hot take saying, well, the ones where there were reporters, not just people that oh, Duke sucks, like people who you think would be smarter. When they said, well, he should get there, he has the best players. It took him 40 seasons. Like this, as David alluded to, this doesn't just happen. I mean, Bob Knight had the best players. Dean Smith had the best players, and they didn't get close to 1,000 wins. I mean, Bobby Knight kind of did, but this
Adolph Rupp didn't have 1,000 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and back then, they played fewer games, but still, Adolph Rupp coached
John Wooden didn't have
40 years.
Yeah,
I mean, and John Wooden. Well, they played fewer games, but John Wooden won all of them. So I mean, it's really, I think, an amazing accomplishment, and it took a come-from-behind effort. They play St. John's historically. They've always played them to get a foothold in New York. This is stupid for me to say they never play road games. This was a road game, but with, half the crowd being Duke fans at least.
Right.
They do love playing the St. John's series explicitly to play at the Garden. It was a fun crowd. It was a tough game, and they always get a tough test from St. John's, and Saturday was no exception. They had to come from behind. And Chad, against the St. John's team that I'm really impressed by, they're top 40 in Ken Pom, they're top 100 in both adjusted offense and defense, but they're also in 8th place in the Big East. They're 13-6 overall. They're 2-4 in conference, and they had a huge opportunity for a major bargaining chip out of conference win slip through their hands.
Well, and the problem with the St. John's team right now is they don't have a win against anybody that's solidly in the looking like a tournament team. Their best wins, they won at Syracuse, they won at Providence.
I think
they have a home win over St. Mary's. I think Providence is a good team. That Providence win is definitely their best win, but Providence is a team that they lose game or two in a row. We're going to be talking about them as a bubble team also. I mean, they need that signature win still that really makes them stand out. And, they got Georgetown twice and Villanova once left in the schedule. They're going to win one of those games, I think.
David, I'm going to throw 3 teams at you from the Big East, not literally. I can't lift that much. That are around the same area in most rankings and seem to be kind of in the same boat. The latter 2 are towards the bottom half of the Big East, but they're teams that are going to be very interesting in the mix when it comes tournament time. Providence, Seton Hall, St. John's. If you had to order those 3, Providence is 5-2 in the conference, 15-5 overall. Seton Hall is 3-4 in the Big East, 13-6 overall. St. John's is 13-6, 2-4 overall. So of Providence, Seton Hall, and St. John's, if you had to pick one of those 3 to make a tournament case for, which would it be right now and why?
Providence. I just think that they do have some weak out of conference losses, but I just like the way that they're playing right now. Let me pull them up here. Again, first of all, they won at Georgetown, I believe, or they beat Georgetown. I believe they're the only team that's won at Butler. They beat Notre Dame on a neutral floor, who I love this Notre Dame team. I know their RPI isn't healthy yet, but everything else about them, they're the only team that's beaten Notre Dame. And they beat
Providence is the only team to win at Butler. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they beat Notre Dame. They're the only team that's beaten Notre Dame, and they had another good win against a Miami team that I like. They got into the rankings today. I don't understand why people are so low on this Miami team. And this is a really good Miami team. They're a little schizophrenic, but they're still pretty good. I don't even think it's close. I think this Providence team is in the 6-7 line range right now. Now, again, they have you're really holding your nose. They went through a stretch there at the beginning of December that was just, oh God, losing to
Brown.
Boston. Oh God, oh Jesus, I'm sorry.
And Boston College.
I did not.
Brown, Boston College, and to be honest, the Marquette. Marquette is in the top 100 because of how good the Big East is. Marquette is a bad basketball team right now.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I did not realize Providence was ineligible for the NCAA tournament with that Boston College loss.
That's interesting. Yes, we're already testing our rule from last week, but no, I also like Providence the most out of the three. I mean,
drinking my whiskey.
I mean, Providence, the wins over a neutral site win over Notre Dame, a neutral site win over Miami. Those two alone are going to do wonders for them if it comes down to the end of the bubble. I mean, that's two more wins than most teams down there might have this year, let alone one. After that, I like Seton Hall more than St. John's. Chad, I'll defer to you on this. I mean, this is a Seton Hall team who we've seen. The flashes are there that they could really be a very good team and a very tough out. But right now they're going through an absolutely brutal stretch in the Big East. They have, overall they've lost 4 out of 5. The only win is a road 1-point win at a bad Creighton team, which is by far the worst team in the Big East, a conference that is already regretting inviting them, as I predicted they would.
Yes.
Can this Seton Hall team turn it around, Chad?
Well, you just mentioned that I just mentioned how much I don't like this St. John's profile. I like this Seton Hall profile just even worse, I'd have to say. Although I think they're both right now kind of in there, but, I mean, to lose at home to DePaul, granted DePaul is a lot better this year than they've been probably since the early days of the Great Midwest Conference.
I was going to say Dave Lato in the Conference USA in 03-04 when they were that large 8-9.
And I believe that Dave Lato team.
I don't really have any direct recollection off the top of my head here of when DePaul used to be good.
I literally only remember that DePaul team because UConn played them in the tournament. I have no good excuse other than that.
Right, DePaul has really struggled in the post-turntable era. Like, ever since the cassette,
The invention of the computer has really wreaked havoc on DePaul's plans. But Oliver Purnell, I'll tell you what, DePaul, they're in 5th in the Big East, and this is by far their worst conference position this year. I mean, all they have done this year is win games at home against good teams. You do not just walk into the Allstate Arena, folks. All the jokes that have been made for years about Welsh Ryan with Northwestern, they actually apply this year for DePaul. They have home wins this season over Xavier, St. John's, Seton Hall, Stanford. They beat Stanford at home.
They did. Now, was that at Allstate or was that at the United Center?
Oh, that was probably at Allstate.
That was at Allstate.
They definitely don't play
okay.
They don't play at the United Center. Allstate and the United Center are like blood and water. It's not good. There's no way they play in both. But at the end of the day, I think we can all agree DePaul better, but this is not a tournament team.
Yeah. But getting back to your Seton Hall question.
Seton Hall, sorry.
Yeah, can they turn it around? Well, the good news for them is their next 4 games are Marquette and DePaul on the road, Xavier and Marquette at home. They've got a real good chance to go 4-0 in those games. I regret just how tough it is to win at DePaul, but they've already lost to DePaul. I can't see them getting swept by them. Xavier cannot win a road game to save their lives, so they go 4-0. They go 4-0 in these games. They're right back there, solid again, despite not having any huge wins in those 4.
Okay.
Taking a look towards the top of the Big East.
I was about to ask a question.
Yeah, well, you've got Georgetown in first at 6-2, a half game ahead of Villanova at 5-2. But I mean, we saw last week. I mean, as of this moment, it's hard to not pick Georgetown after they drubbed Villanova by 20 points in Philadelphia. But the upcoming schedules are Villanova is at DePaul this Saturday, and Villanova, be warned, be warned. With what we have seen, it would not surprise me to see somehow DePaul win that game.
Lee, that was at the Verizon Center, the Georgetown Nova game.
Oh, okay. Oh, I apologize. That's all right. So
Yeah.
it's less bad. Georgetown, meanwhile, coming up Tuesday night, they play Xavier. Then they travel to Creighton on Saturday. Their next to last game of the season is against Butler, and that's literally just a transition so I can get out of the way and let David Griggs wax poetic about Chris Holtman and the Butler Bulldogs, who are in fourth place with a record of 5-3.
I need this again.
Hey! Why do you just don't take a puppet's whiskey? You just don't do that.
I mean, yeah, they beat Seton Hall at home by 20. I mean, come on. All I did before we sign on was talk about how great they looked in that game. Like, all right, go ahead. Tell me how
Okay,
great
well,
Butler
it's
team is.
just I think when you look at them on paper, I hate to be the eye test guy. I think when you look at them on paper, they're really good, and when you watch them play, they're good, but they're not as good as their paper. This is what they've done. They've beaten North Carolina away from home, neutral floor. They've beaten Georgetown away from home. They've won at Seton Hall. Like, those are three really good wins. And they also won at St. John's, which seemed good at the time, but it really hasn't turned out to be. I mean, they have won 5 games away from home, 4 of them against formidable teams. I just think that's impressive. I really like what Chris Holtman has done. I say that every week. Again, he walked into a really tough situation. It was a crazy story, him leaving a very successful Gardner-Webb program that he had turned around, 5 wins to, I think, 20-plus in 3 years. You wonder why he would go to Butler to be an assistant coach unless he sort of knew that he was a head coach in waiting or something like that. But they are very much improved. It's with very much the same personnel. I realize Boatwright, it was a Boatwright that wasn't on the team last year due to an injury, but
Well, I don't know. Did Ryan switch schools? Did I miss something?
he did not. Who am I thinking of? Jesus Christ.
Well, good thing. It's too bad we didn't give you whiskey.
See, I can't think clearly, God. But anyway,
right.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, it's just a very. I just think that he's at least the coach of the year in the conference.
The interesting thing about Butler.
I think you're talking about Roosevelt Jones, aren't you?
Yes,
Roosevelt
definitely Roosevelt Jones. He did not face Ryan Boatwright in a Final Four. That was sure. The interesting thing about this Butler team is, as you said, on paper it looks great. I mean, their worst loss by far is a loss at Tennessee, and that's not that bad of a loss, really, especially in the computers. They beat Georgetown in a neutral court in Atlantis in a game scheduled before they joined the Big East.
Right.
So that's not a conference win for them, which really sucks. Like, if they come up a game short of somebody else and their argument against them is that they finished, like, 4th in the Big East instead of, like, 3rd, that's really going to hurt because their first game against Georgetown in conference this year, they lost by 2 points at the Verizon Center.
Right, and that was a game where they led most of the game, and they had another game like that recently where they led.
Which is ironic because their big upset over Pitt with that crazy finish in the tournament a few years ago. I don't know if it was the same score at the Verizon Center, but it was at the Verizon Center, and it was a miraculous Butler win. This time they got on the other end of it. That was the 2011 tournament. But, so, I mean, that's the Big East right now. I think Georgetown, I know where Villanova is in the polls. I mean, I'm going to take Georgetown right now, having just, dismantled Villanova. But I am starting to get the feeling that after Georgetown and Villanova, there's really a drop-off here. And after all the early season talk about, how much better the Big East was this year, and it was, it doesn't feel like there's really – it still doesn't feel that deep yet to me.
I think Nova's overall profile is better despite just getting their doors blown off. The other thing about this conference, it won – a lot of teams came in the league play with bloated records, which, again, I think as they continue to play each other sort of pushes the numbers in the paper up. If Georgetown or Nova, particularly Nova, were to break away from everyone else and start winning on the road, because everybody in this conference is struggling to win on the road. I think the most anybody has is 2 right now. If you were to get 5 or 6 road wins out of the 9 that you play, where does that land you on the seed list? Could they get like if Nova wins out, can they get all the way up to the 1 line? Tough road wins.
It depends on movement around them. I have a hard time with Nova up there just because, I'm kind of penciling Duke and Kentucky in right now.
Yeah, and I think you can pencil Virginia in up there too.
So I mean, basically, if you're talking about a fight for one spot between Gonzaga and Villanova, would be interesting. You mentioned it's hard for road teams in the Big East. Road teams are actually 11-26, which is the
that's average.
Second, which is the second worst record on the road for in conference play for any conference. Right.
I got to ask what the first is.
I actually don't know. I just know that the Big East is it's listed as the third highest home win percentage on KenPom, and I know that the Independence America's team is counting as one of those 33. So I'm not sure, but we'll move on.
One in South Alabama
right is second on KenPom. We might as well go over to the team that's first right now, and look who's on top of the Big 12 again: the Kansas Jayhawks at 5-1. David. A big win for them over the weekend at Texas by 13. I mean, they're going to win the Big 12 again, aren't they?
They are, and again, this is a team. I think they started off fairly decent to pretty good, and they have improved to now being great. I watched them against Kentucky, and because they got beaten so badly, I think it just gave me an impression to where I wasn't looking at them as being as good as what they were, but wow, is this team good? I mean, they've won at Georgetown, they've won at Baylor, they've won at Texas. I mean, those are teams that I don't know what the combined overall home win-loss record is of those three teams, but it's got to be fantastic. I mean, they won all three of those. Well, okay, I almost said Michigan State, and then I realized that it was Michigan State. But
yeah, it's not the year to use that one.
Yeah, and again, this is a very tough Big 12 conference. You got them, you've got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, you got Baylor, you got Texas. These are all teams that are on the verge of all of those teams have a chance to become protected seats. I mean, this is a very, very strong league. West Virginia, another one.
Well, you mentioned West Virginia. I mean, can we talk about the end of that TCU game? Now,
yes.
Granted, West Virginia should not really I look at that game more as a testament to TCU showing that they might be more for real than we want to give them credit for. If you didn't see this game, West Virginia added a huge shot at the end of regulation to force OT. And in the last 12 seconds of overtime...
Was it a 3? I think it was.
It was a 3. Chad, in the last 12 seconds of overtime, there were 3 successful offensive possessions, one on one end, one on the other, and then West Virginia coming back they were just brilliant heads-up plays. You had a 3-pointer by West Virginia to give them a 2-point lead with 8 seconds left. TCU came down the other way, drove right down the lane, did not call timeout. They attacked the hoop. They got the layup with 2 seconds left, and then an incredible heads-up play by West Virginia. I wish I could remember the names. If we were a good podcast, we would, but we aren't, so we don't. Immediately looking
it was that player.
Immediately looking up court, noticing the West Virginia player, one of his teammates was up court with his hand up already at the halfway stripe. TCU wasn't celebrating, but this West Virginia player immediately broke the other way because he knew they had 2 seconds left. And he drove inside, and a foul was called, and I think correctly so. And I know Trent Johnson was livid about it. But, I mean, Chad, what did you think? Was it a foul? It was called a foul. West Virginia hit free throws and ended up winning the game as a result.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. But I agree with you. Your original comment about this game, TCU maybe having a little bit more life. In the end, though, this is TCU we're talking about. It's a team with a completely bloated record, and they showed a little life here. I think this may be the last life we see from them all season, though.
It's tough. If they were in, almost any other conference, if they were a Missouri Valley team or a MAC team or a Conference USA team or even maybe a West Coast Conference team randomly, I think they would have enough wins they could get in conference play where they would make it in.
Well, let me throw this out there, though. Right now, even though, despite the fact they're playing in the Big 12, TCU at 14-5 overall is 132 in the RPI right now. That you've got to be impressively scheduled lousy to be there in the Big 12 conference.
Here's the thing: they've played the 8th toughest strength of schedule. Oh no, actually, they played.
They played the 232nd toughest strength of schedule.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I know
that's
about
substantially lower than 8, Lee.
No, actually, I had it wrong.
You need some of this.
Yes, you did.
Here's the thing for TCU: they're 1-5 in the Big 12, and they have played the 3rd easiest Big 12 schedule so far. So
Okay.
we would like to thank them for their participation and wish them safe travels. Although the team right below them, I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for Iowa State and Fred Hoiberg, but can you guys agree that Texas Tech beating Iowa State does not showcase the depth of the Big 12? That is an embarrassing bad loss and nothing more.
Yes, I confirm.
I mean, that's brutal. You should not lose at Texas Tech or at home to Texas Tech.
I'll tell you, Lee, that was one of the most startling upsets, and although it was only the 2nd biggest upset this past weekend, it was one of the most startling upsets of the entire season, the way that Iowa State just goes out. And right now, Iowa State, I believe, is beating Texas as we do this.
Yeah, they are.
They're up
Sure,
11 on
why
Texas,
not? That's great. I can make more Rick Barnes.
Well, and again, this is one of those home road situations. Iowa State is tremendously tough at home. They're good on neutral floors. Well, sort of. They lost to South Carolina and Angry Frank. On the road, they're not so good. I mean, they win about 30% of their road games, which is right on the national average. But as good as they are and as high as we're used to seeing them ranked, they're not a good road team. Now, they're not Arkansas or Xavier or teams that just cannot win once they cross the street.
Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri. Thank you. They're not that bad, but I wouldn't go so far to say that they're good either on the road.
I'll tell you what. I mean, if you can't freaking win it at Texas Tech, like, good luck in this conference, because you've got some. Not only are these good teams, these are excellent home court advantages. We know how strong going into the fog. We know going into the Octagon at Kansas State, even though it's you don't have Angry Frank anymore, so it's easier. Yeah. But Oklahoma can get wild crowds. We know how great the crowds are in Stillwater. Yeah. And I'll say this for Texas Tech. This will be the only positive thing about this. That first-class court storming, truly as if they were planning to do this once this year. I mean, that was the best court storming I've seen in a couple of years. That was a immediate full-scale coverage mob with no injuries. You can't do it any better than that.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
I mean, that's well done by a school that really should know what it's doing there, because any win is a chance for a court storming.
Right.
So that's the Big 12. I don't know if any of you guys had. There is one place I wanted to go here, Chad. We mentioned good teams in the Big 12, and you included Oklahoma in there, and I think they're good, but they've also lost 4 out of 5. Now, of course, is this because they're Big 12 games, which are incredibly difficult, or are there actual problems going on here at Oklahoma?
You look at they've lost 4 out of the 5. 3 of those games were at West Virginia, at Kansas, at Baylor. This is the schedule getting them. Oklahoma's right now is 12-7, and they are by far the best team with 7 losses in the entire country. I'm not concerned about Oklahoma.
Besides UConn, of course. No, I'm kidding.
I'm
not definitely not Syracuse.
Their other loss was a home loss to K-State, who I think maybe merits a couple seconds of conversation here.
Can we do? Well, I mean, the loss. I know road Creighton. I mean, God. I agree with you. I do think this is the schedule coming up. It gets easier for them because it can't get much more difficult. They have a home game on Wednesday against Texas Tech. God, the Red Raiders are going to get just drilled in that game. Then they go to Oklahoma State, and obviously the rivalry game's huge. After that, home game for West Virginia at TCU, who's scuffling. Home game for Iowa State. So they've got a chance coming up. The schedule lightens up a little bit.
Is this Oklahoma or K-State?
We're talking Oklahoma. So Oklahoma right now, I agree with you. A very deceptive 12-7. They're 3-4 in the Big 12. There's going to be, Kansas is going to win the conference probably by 3 clear games, and everyone else is going to have 4 or 5 losses. Yeah. And it's, God, can we take a sec, David? Kansas is going to do this again. This is. At what point is the Big 12 maybe overall, as an existence, overrated? 12 straight, really? Nobody else in the Big 12 can step up and win a regular season here.
if they blow, I mean, if they rampage through this, and I think they'll stub their toes a couple times, but can they get up on the one line? If this is the toughest conference with the toughest road games, and Kansas goes out there and wins 7 out of the 9 road games that they play, or 8 out of 9, and then goes for the double, do they get up on the one line? Is it too early talking about
I think they absolutely deserve that, David. We spoke about this a few times before. RPI right now, Kentucky is not number 1 overall. Kansas is.
Yeah, largely because they played Kentucky. But
it didn't go well, but
it does. Yeah. I mean, RPI. This is another reason why I think RPI is the worst stat to use when rating a team. But but throw that aside, I absolutely think if you're going to say, we talked about before, can Villanova get to the one line? Not when Kansas is out there, and if you're already inking in Kentucky, Virginia, and Duke for 3 of them. There's no room left on that one line. It's Kansas or it's Gonzaga.
Right.
Well, another team, I mean, you just mentioned them, and I feel like we didn't spend enough time on them last week, so I kind of want to go there now. Just quickly, I mean, this is going to be a West Coast Conference chat. We'll dart over to the ACC after this, but just real quick, I think we should take a couple minutes to just appreciate Gonzaga, and, of course, this weekend saw. I mean, rumor has it this is a rivalry, but, I mean, once again, St. Mary's goes in the McCarthy Pavilion and once again gets waxed.
It's Joby.
Oh, well, see, and Joby is here,
right,
and I'm glad to have him here. Joby, we have not discussed the ACC outside of Coach K yet. We will be going there in a moment. But for now, I'll go to Chad. Chad, your thoughts on this Gonzaga team having just destroyed St. Mary's at home? I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to lose the rest of the regular season. I mean, that would put them at 30-1 going into the West Coast Conference Tournament. I mean, at what point do they get considered for the 3 on the S curve even?
I have them right now 3 on the S curve. I have them at a solid 3 right behind Kentucky and Virginia.
As do I.
And I mean, they have one more chance to lose during the regular season. That's the trip to St. Mary's, and I don't expect them to lose that game. The next most challenging game they'll have coming up is the West Coast Conference Championship game, which will be against probably the winner of a St. Mary's versus BYU semifinal. They got a BYU home game left. They got a game at Memphis left. I mean, those are 2 easy wins, I think, at this point. I think I shocked everyone because I got off the Gonzaga bandwagon about 10 years ago, have refused to get back on it, but I did heading into this season. I picked them as a Final Four team coming in. Right now,
more than that last week.
Right now, I really think that this team is a national championship contender, not just maybe a shot to get up there, but I think they can beat Kentucky head-to-head. I think they could beat Virginia head-to-head. I think they...
Yeah.
All right, well, we got Joby on the line. Joby, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, Joby. Well,
Joby, are you intentionally hiding from us?
I would, too.
Yeah, I would. I don't
know. How are you guys? I'm back.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
All right, Joby.
You don't see me coming on here anonymously.
Or me. Joby, I'll come on at you with this real quick. What are your thoughts or impressions, if any, so far with this Gonzaga team, especially, I know as a Virginia fan with the amazing season they've had, is this a team that you look at? You got to be looking ahead at potential Final Four opponents. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about this Gonzaga team?
Actually, it'll be very interesting because nothing's set in stone, obviously, on various bracketing and seeding, etc. We all know that most likely, I'll use Virginia as an example. Most likely, Virginia's not getting through their next 3 games undefeated. Let's be. We'll get to that in a second.
If they do, I would motion them to be number 1 in the country just for the sake of. Yeah.
I think they should be if they do.
You're going to be what you're sitting here with is a situation where there is likely a team in the East Coast region, so to speak, who's going to be sent out west, either as most likely a 2 at this stage. If Gonzaga does indeed run the table, they certainly will earn that number 1 seed. And so you just might see a Duke versus Gonzaga, a Virginia versus Gonzaga, a Villanova versus Gonzaga, a very strong matchup.
No, I think your Pac-12 champion will be sent out west as the 2 seed.
And Arizona certainly can change that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's Arizona.
At a moment's notice. but you could see that combo. What happens when Gonzaga plays that? I think Gonzaga certainly can win. I mean, I love their guard play in particular. They have depth on the inside as well. But will this, and this is what I think has hurt Gonzaga over the last few years of underplaying, underseed, is you just hit it. St. Mary's and BYU are the only potential tournament teams, and BYU's out right now.
Oh, BYU is awful.
Bubble.
I'm sorry, I watched the BYU San Diego game, which, unlike basically anybody else in America, because the West Coast Conference manages to have a terrible TV deal. BYU.
Well, there's one that's worse. We'll get to that.
Than Conference USA, yeah, somehow.
No, I was thinking
we just mentioned the Pac-12
all right, well,
could be
we tell.
But regardless, I think we'll see if their weak regular season. I know it's not their fault, but we'll see if that doesn't prepare them well for the tournament. I argue you can't take 2 months essentially off and be able to jump back in, without losing something. This is maybe the best Gonzaga team we've seen, but when you go up against teams that do have to play at least one tournament-worthy team practically every week, if not twice a week, I think that does impact you.
But Joey, doesn't the VCU Final Four run, the Butler Final Four runs, the Memphis championship game, even though that didn't really happen according to the NCAA, doesn't that go against that segment?
You certainly could pick some out, from Cinderellas, but why hasn't it happened to a better Gonzaga team? Why is it a 12-seeded VCU team, which I would argue a lot of it, the playing game was their friend. Because then go out and they are playing, and in a groove ahead of the teams. Plus, you catch lightning in a bottle, and certainly Gonzaga can catch lightning in a bottle. It doesn't require lightning with them. But,
right. Well, here's the thing. Memphis did something during those runs, and it wasn't just the run of the championship that didn't happen. It was the 2 other Elite Eight, because they went to 3 Elite Eights in a row. And although they were not in a Power CUSA conference, they managed to schedule showcase games late in the year. Now, I don't know how they did that. I don't know if they worked for the conference to get breaks every now and then, but they did. Now, with the West Coast being at a 10-team, 18-game schedule, it prohibits Gonzaga from doing that. Or the only way they could is to try and play some conference games in November and December, which we see out of some leagues. But I really do think I don't want to say that you need to do it or it's impossible to do it. We've seen teams do it from weaker leagues, particularly Butler. But one of the things that I do think helped that Memphis team that didn't actually get there was that they didn't actually play games against strong teams, but they would have had they actually done it.
The example for me would be the fact that the Gonzaga, for years they've tried the battle in Seattle. But, the first couple of years, they had Oklahoma State, they had UConn. Then they started having UMass. This year it was Cal Poly. It's getting harder and harder to get that one late season game that you can get. Yeah. It was always mid-February. I remember for Memphis, that was what gave us that awesome Memphis-Tennessee 1-2 showdown. That was in mid-February. Yeah. And I know that for Memphis.
Did that actually happen?
What was that?
That never happened either.
Oh, right.
But it would have happened.
Magically. I might have dreamed it. I don't know. I'm
it would have happened.
So snowblind in a couple hours here. I won't know what's... Joby, he's very upset about the lack of whiskey.
Cat took my whiskey.
But I'll tell you what won't drive you to drink. It's these Virginia Cavaliers who right now are fighting with Duke to be the class of the ACC, and let's go there next. You've got Virginia at 7-0, but Joby, you mentioned it. This schedule coming up is the toughest stretch of the year. What are your expectations, I guess?
My expectation is I think we saw in the St. John's game with Duke some resilience, but also a lot of freshman mistakes to put them in that situation. I think Virginia at home with the veteran team actually will pull it out against Duke. Game day's there. This is the biggest regular season game at Virginia since, I know it sounds funny, Syracuse last year, which was the biggest regular season game since Ralph Sampson. So this is, and Virginia's proven on those biggest regular season games, given the Syracuse game, they win those. They can win those. I think Virginia will beat Duke. However, and if Duke's hitting lights out, no. I mean, it's all about three-point shooting in that case, and that reserve on that. But they will have spent so much right then and there on a Saturday night game that to turn around and go to Chapel Hill 2 days later, I mean, I don't see how you do it. And if anyone besides Page is hitting from the outside for North Carolina, I'm picking Tokido. I think North Carolina is where the loss will come.
Yeah, I agree with you on that layout. I mean, David, it's Duke and then 2 days later for North Carolina, and I don't want the ACC saying, "Well, we gave them 6 days for Duke." That is some brutal scheduling for a team that you knew was going to be really good entering the year. Go ahead, David.
And then you play Louisville right after that.
Right. Oh, by the way,
Okay, I will say this though, that like after the first weekend of the tournament, when from the Sweet 16 on, you're in a Thursday Saturday format against top 15, top 10, top 5 teams, and although this is rough now for Virginia, I really think this experience in particular, the Saturday Tuesday with 1 day off is going to. I think it's a blessing in disguise. I really do, because when they get there in March, they're going to know what it feels like.
Well, another team that's...
the thing is also North Carolina plays Louisville on Saturday, so it's not like North Carolina has a big rest. I just think the emotional drain of the biggest game of a home game in Cavalier history will take a lot toll.
Yeah, and I mean, this coming Saturday is as big a day in the ACC as I can ever remember. You mentioned it. North Carolina heads to Louisville. David, your thoughts on this North Carolina team that tonight, with a win over Syracuse, who is just terrible, improved to 7-1 in the ACC. 17-4 overall. They've won 6 straight in the ACC play. Granted, 3 were against bad ACC teams, and another was against Syracuse, who I really am tempted to put in that category. But is this North Carolina team really starting to hit its stride, or are they a bit of a conference schedule byproduct that's still got Roy Williams?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they're definitely playing better now than they did throughout November and December. At least I think they are. But part of it is, I mean, the schedule hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been as tough as like the stretch Virginia's about to go through and what they're about to go through, like at Louisville and then at home against Virginia. We'll see what they do. I do think Virginia will beat them. I think Virginia is going to get it done in Chapel Hill, but we'll see. This is still a really good 3-seed caliber North Carolina team.
Their schedule is so strange coming up because they're at Louisville, then host Virginia. Then their next 3 games are all on the road, at Boston College, at Pitt, and then at Cameron Indoor. So,
so 2 bye games and then Duke.
Yeah, 16. I mean, Joby, you alluded to, having to play great teams every week. They've got 16 days between Virginia and Duke that they're just playing scrimmages either formally or informally. And I wonder the effect that might have on them.
Well, let me ask you this about Boston College. Is there any added pressure knowing that if you lose that game, you're out of the NCAA?
I mean, that sucks for, who was it, Seton Hall earlier that we eliminated?
It was, Providence. Oh, no, it was Providence.
Providence, that's right.
Yeah.
That was kind of a road game, though, because Providence legitimately had 60% of the fans in that building there. I mean, it was literally 60-40 total.
And they still lost.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But looking further down the ACC, I mean, Joby, I want to get your thoughts. Actually, I'll go to Chad first. Chad, this Miami team, I mean, hot, cold. I mean, is this not the most terrifying team to face in this conference? Because at least when you see Virginia's excellent and Duke's excellent, you know what you're getting. This Miami team, I mean, they now, in their last 4 games, they've almost won at Notre Dame. They have won at Duke. They have won at Syracuse. This is also a team that lost at home to Eastern Kentucky by 30 points and almost lost at home to Boston College.
Well, listen,
Boston College.
The home loss to Eastern Kentucky, followed by a loss to Providence that came up at the Barclays Center, both in the week before Christmas. They had other things in their mind. I don't count those losses. Throw out that Eastern Kentucky loss. I don't know what the hell happened to that game.
I really don't either.
This Miami team is as good as is probably just a notch below Virginia and Duke, but I think they're as good as North Carolina and Louisville in this conference. Their paper is not going to equal that because of the Eastern Kentucky loss. They also have honestly a fairly easy schedule the rest of the way. They still have to play
it's
Louisville
incredibly
twice,
easy.
but Louisville twice and a home game against North Carolina, and that's it.
Those are winnable games. Well, Louisville at Louisville may not be, but at home against Louisville, Miami should win that one, and they really should beat North Carolina at home. I really, really like this Miami team. I realize that they had some really bad warts out of conference, but when you look at the paper, I just couldn't understand why people were writing them off. I know they just got into the rankings today, but it's deserved. This is a good Miami team.
Well, Joby, where have you got them right now? Because you're our guy for the rank in terms of having done the bracket. You're the crazy guy who's doing one on January 20th or 26th. Oh boy!
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey,
I like this Miami team, especially with their remaining schedule. I think their paper is going to improve just by default of the schedule remaining. What sort of
the
seed are they
paper
looking
right
at?
now? The paper right now, I have them around a 6 or a 7. Paper, because the Eastern Kentucky loss is a big part of their resume.
Yeah.
But they're going to build better, and the paper doesn't take into account. It's not like people go, "Oh, double overtime against Virginia." I don't think at the end of the season that's going to really matter a lot. They're going to see loss to Virginia, not a bad one. I mean, that's no one holds it against you, but it's not like, oh, they were so close. They're just as no. I don't think that's going to hold a big sway. It's going to be what they do on the court, and they have done stuff on the court. They're up and down. I think that starts at the point guard position. I'll be blunt of where it goes. But this is a very good team. I don't know if I trust them long term to make a run in the tourney. Though Larinaga is the type who's done it with much less talent. I don't know if I trust them because of the hot and cold. I prefer, and you guys, it's the other ACC team that has not been mentioned yet. I am so right now on the Notre Dame bandwagon.
You're not talking Georgia Tech. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Look, we all
have
make
it, yeah.
mistakes. All right, yeah, Georgia Tech. Good God. I'm glad you mentioned Notre Dame, Joby, because they deserve to be mentioned. And I'll defer to David Griggs here because he is. Before you showed up, he was already starting to get all gunnied up for the Irish here. Go ahead.
Well,
I like him a lot too. Don't get me wrong, but I could tell David wanted to be the champion.
Well, no, I just can't. I think I did not expect much out of them at all coming into the year, and they played for their out-of-conference schedule, they went to the bakery. I mean, Northern Illinois, Hartford, who I know we like as an under-the-radar team, but it's still
not anymore.
Wait.
5 teams have an RPI of 300 or greater. I mean, it is like that. That's why their RPI is misleading, I might add, because you combine all the 5.
Why do this? I understand you can say, well, it doesn't matter because look at what they're doing in conference play. Well, you put yourself under so much more pressure to do well in conference when you take a pass on making any sort of case for yourself out of conference. But anyway, since they've been in conference, like they won at North Carolina, really impressive. They beat Miami at home. They won at NC State last night, which I think only has 2 or 3 home losses. That was a good win. It was a raucous crowd.
At one point in that game too.
Yeah. So to beat down like that on the road against a formidable team in a hostile environment and come back and win, that in and of itself is impressive. Now, do I think they're as good as their ranking? I actually don't. I think they're more along the 4 or the 5 line, probably more of the 4 line. I don't see them on the 2 line. But largely because, look at again, I hate to keep saying the paper, but the paper is a big part of what the committee uses to select and seed the teams, and their paper is not as good as the other teams up on the 2 that we've talked about. Arizona, who we haven't talked about yet, Kansas, not even close, Villanova, because they basically went to the bakery for out of conference.
And I mean look, I know Chad's going to freaking say it. Yeah, the Hartford loss to Maine really hurts, okay? It really hurts my Hartford case.
Okay, I mentioned earlier that Texas Tech, I would say, was the second biggest upset. Yeah, that was number 1. Nobody's talking about it, but this may have been the greatest upset I've seen all season.
Even more so than the Citadel over. I agree. That was the biggest upset of the year.
God.
Wow.
I don't want to. I'm so upset. Hartford, you had a chance. Quinnipiac sucks. Central sucks. Fairfield sucks. This was your time to grab the ring as that other plucky team, and you just shoved it straight up your own ass. Oh, God. And speaking of
By
things
the
that
way,
make you...
Florida A&M is only down 3 to a
Wow.
team with a winning
Whoa.
with 3 minutes to go.
Thank you, Joby. We usually save Florida A&M for the end of the show, but all right.
We'll
By the
keep
way,
an eye on this. I got
Keep an eye on that. This is major centenary implications.
It really does. And Iowa State, by the way, is killing Texas comfortably at home in the second half. Speaking of the centenary, can we just have a round of applause for the Marist Red Foxes, who on Sunday got it done? As I said, they would get it done last week because they had to get it done because Fairfield was really their last shot.
Well, they've got another shot because they got this Niagara team coming up too, and I saw them play. I saw Niagara. Went to the Monmouth game. Even won myself the free T-shirt here.
All
Boy,
right.
you must have had to fight a lot of people up for that.
I did. I was throwing people away to get that Monmouth T-shirt.
All right, let's see that one more time. I wasn't looking. Hold on. You proudly display that.
Yeah.
God, that's outstanding. I actually got a shirt at a Sacred Heart game this year too, so I can't even say anything. But no, the Marist Red Foxes, the best 2-17 team in the United States. Awesome. Speaking of bad records, can we go out west? Joby, I really was thinking that the Pac-12, this might be the year. It really might be. But let's be honest. Arizona's awesome. Utah's great. Stanford's probably really good. And
They're a tournament team, without a doubt.
They're good. But who is sitting in fourth place? The mighty Wayne Tinkles of Oregon State. Just this conference is a tire fire again. Using Ken Palm numbers. So
Washington is probably in the tournament right now.
I completely disagree with your point, but we do, as Chad said earlier today, Wayne Tinkle has done a fantastic job. They're not getting into the tournament. They might not even make the NIT, but they are so much better than they were last year before he took them over. I think again, one of the more impressive coaching jobs in the Atlantic.
Imagine if he was related to the president. I mean, how good he is.
Oh, yeah. No, well, that's clearly – you mean coaching acumen's a better qualifier? Joby, real quick, your thoughts. If somehow we could get a Virginia-Oregon State game, how many possessions would it be? I mean, 35? 40?
We've already seen hints of it. Remember, for 2 straight years, the Big Ten and ACC got together and said, hey, guys, why don't you two play each other, Wisconsin and Virginia, because no one else wants to play you. So,
it ended up being a great game. But looking throughout this Pac-12 conference, you did mention Washington, and Chad, you've got some pretty important news involving the Huskies.
Yeah, the Huskies, probably their best player, Robert Upshaw. He's leading the nations in blocks. He was averaging, I think, a little over 10 points a game. I think eight
really good defensive. Yeah.
Team today. He's not going to be back again. He had previously been thrown off of Fresno State, transferred over to Washington, now got thrown off of Washington this year. We're not going to conjecture as to why it was. You could probably look around and read it, but we don't want to go there. But a huge blow for the Huskies. Who are already struggling. I don't see how they recover from this.
They won't. I think that's it. I mean, they were kind of a surprise, a big surprise. At least I thought they were. They were barely on the fringe of the bubble with them. They're off it without him. I think. Wow.
And taking a look, I started to allude to it earlier. This is American Conference-esque numbers. Remember last year how the American Conference every game was a blowout? 10 of the 42 Pac-12 conference games have been 19-point or greater margins of victory. Wow. Road teams are a robust 12 and 42, or 12 and 30. Excuse me, 12 and 30. I was never good at math. I mean, this is a conference that's got 2 really good teams up top. But Joby, do you think Arizona and Utah are really going to get hurt by the fact that? God, Colorado's in the middle of things.
Yeah.
UCLA is. Oregon. God, Oregon almost didn't have a team this year.
You mentioned the road victories. Ironically, Washington State has a couple of those.
God, and a home win over Arizona. So I don't know. Washington State's the fourth best team in the Pac-12. I'll say it.
Well, the thing is that mediocrity, that junk of mediocrity of Cal and Colorado, like you said, and all that, Arizona State, it's mediocrity. There is a difference. There is a difference between that and, Gonzaga's playing half the time out in WCC.
Coach?
Let's be realistic here. They're playing a bunch of CIT level teams.
Come on,
David.
Who's Wazoo's coach?
You know who it
Ernie
is.
Kent.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Ernie Kent. Okay.
Here you go, David, for you.
Joby, you were saying before David Green made sure we could all laugh at Ernie Kent.
The thing is,
at least Ernie Kent.
They don't have the high-end elite scale like you see in the Big 12, the ACC, and now even maybe the Big 10 with Indiana come to and Ohio State showing some signs of life. They don't have the high-end, but they don't have just an utter dip. Like Oregon State's not Oregon State of 2013-14. Yeah, they actually have to show up. They can't just mail it in. And so I don't know if it just kills them. I think, they did play a great preseason. Both teams went out and tried to schedule. Yeah, I think they're going to be ready to go. Plus those, at least especially in Arizona's case, they've been here before. I feel like they're mentally ready to go. They once again, you look at point guard play, isn't much better than you get than Arizona.
Oh, it was all going so well, wasn't it, Quanzo Martin? You thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to get out of Tennessee. I'll go out to Cal. This will go well. They are so bad. And by the way, the Cal basketball Twitter account on Saturday unintentionally had one of the funniest tweets of the year because they tweeted what the score was at the half. And then, let's just say the second half. I'm sorry, this was actually last Thursday. Their home game against Arizona State. Not the game against Arizona, where they understandably lost at home. Hey, that happens. No. That's one thing. It's one thing to score 13 points in the first half, but to do it to Arizona State at home. And then literally their final tweet was, the buzzer sounds, and Arizona State wins 79-44. California is just,
is there
13 points and a half.
And no one has a passion for bad basketball quite like Lee Del Vecchio. Is this your new favorite team? Like, are you
no
in the pit for this Cal Wazoo game?
No, I'll tell you what.
It should not have been a shocker. A bad basketball should not have been a shocker because Herb Sendek was involved.
Yeah, I was going to say, and by the way, that's the kind of game, which is why Arizona State made the brilliant decision in November to extend him. Because God knows they were just getting the doors were physically being beaten off their hinges for Herb Sendek's services. And Arizona State extends him, and it's because of things like winning by 35 at Haas Pavilion in front of 12 people.
Who else is safe? Like we have Utah and Arizona, obviously. Are those
I think
the only
it's a
two?
3-team league right now.
Who's the third?
Stanford.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Joby, you said Washington's in. I don't know. I mean,
I don't think
maybe I'm just projecting. Right now, are they in? Probably, but God.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. All I can do is what they're doing today because now I was unaware of the injury, but I'd actually have Washington.
Well, it's a brain injury. It was a complete brain
injury,
stupid,
right? Yeah.
moronic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
that's what happens when you hang out with me. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough. Enough about. I can't. It's just sad looking. The Pac-12, but I agree, Joby, on your point. Now it's not good, but it's not like a few years ago where we were talking about multiple, two teams that were way too close to having a triple-digit rating with a 2 at the beginning of it, which you don't
have a ton of RPI poison. That's in next.
So there's that. Let's talk about real quick before we go. I know we should really touch on some teams outside of the bigger conferences. I know we really didn't talk much Big Ten this week, folks. I mean, I don't know. You believe in Indiana at your own peril. I mean, Ohio State, Michigan State,
They both have work to do.
Can I give a score update here? Final score: Maryland Eastern Shore 72, Florida A&M 65. It did not happen.
Okay. Well, thank God. Well, speaking of, we'll get to that at the end. But right now, I mean, just quote unquote mid majors. You guys are keeping an eye on. I don't know, Chad. You pick one out first, then we'll go around. Obviously, we're talking about Green Bay, Old Dominion.
Well, I'll tell you the team that really impressed me this past week was Stephen F. Austin. Their biggest rivals in that conference is Sam Houston State, who has been by far the second best team in that conference. They went to Sam Houston State and completely kicked the shit out of them this week.
Yeah, 11 points does not tell the tale. That wasn't it wasn't ass kicking.
It was a pasting, and this SFA team. Oh, their paper is terrible. It's so bad. I mean,
it's actually not as bad as you think because they're in the top 100 in non-conference scheduling, which is freaking amazing for a school that's got Prairie View A&M, Austin P, North Texas, Central Oregon. They played 5 sub-300 teams, and their non-conference strength of schedule is still in the top 100.
How? No, it's not.
Lee, there's two problems with that. One, the big reason that they're so high is because they did play Northern Iowa, Xavier, and Baylor. Well, but the other thing is that's non-conference strength of schedule does not factor in 3 non-D1 games they also played.
That's a very good point. I was late. I was throwing that alley-oop pass. I wasn't sure who would flush it.
Here's the problem, and it's the same problem we had with them last year. And, of course, they're the team that goes on to have success. All they really do by winning out is prove that they can beat sub-200 teams. So all they're doing is proving themselves to be a top 200 team. I think the committee will look at them. I mean, I am all for the under-the-radar teams. I think you know that. I have a very hard time making a case for this team if I wanted to, even if they went out. I mean, had they won at Xavier, had they just won that home game against Northern Iowa, at least there'd be something.
This is where they lost. I know, Joby, you mentioned it for Virginia, but they lost by 2 to Northern Iowa in OT.
Yeah, at home.
Oh, getting 3 more points. Because I am Stephen F. Austin.
I think it changes the entire complexion of their profile.
Oh, of course it does. You're exactly right, David. It does. I don't know if they get in at large. If they run the table and then lose in the final, it would have to be to Sam Houston State, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
But we got to see what happens in the rest of the country. Nothing happens in a bubble, to use have a play on words. There is a chance that the rest of the bubble doesn't show up. But if all of a sudden you see bubble teams do, like I'll use Ohio State as an example, go out and beat in Indiana, even if albeit at home. Okay, well, Ohio State proved that they're playing against pretty strong competition. They finally showed something besides a road win at Minnesota.
Yeah.
We'll see how the rest of the country does.
Right. And I mean, this Stephen F. Austin team, we didn't mention it. They really got shafted by the fact that, a win at Memphis in any of the previous 15 years would have been more impressive than it is this year. And, at this point, thank God they didn't lose. God, Memphis is awful. Oh, God, I watched them. It's terrible.
They are bad.
Sorry, we touched on Stephen F. Austin.
Goes on, though.
I've been a champion of theirs for years, as you annoyingly all know. Green Bay, David Griggs. I know this is another team that you're really behind. Your thoughts on the Phoenix?
I think their ceiling is really high. I think when they play up to it, not only are they good enough to be inside the bubble, but they're good enough to get out of the round of 64. The problem is, I don't know if you've been following under the radar, but we have a new term. They cloose too much. And what a cloose is losing a game you have no business losing. It happens an inordinate amount of time at Iona. It also happens at Murray State, but it's Iona hands down. So I just think that they're going to they cannot afford to cloose at any point between now and the end of the year, because if they do, I don't think they're going to land inside the bubble.
Well, the team that they lost to is an interesting case as well. I mean, this young Valparaiso, I don't think it's a team that's...
They beat Valpo.
They beat Valpo. They lost to Oakland, didn't they?
They're close to Oakland, yeah.
Yeah,
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I pulled up Valpo's profile. I was getting ahead of myself. I was going to ask about them, but
Yeah.
obviously
No, Valpo's.
You
I mean,
wanna
Valpo's good, but they're good by UTR standards, not by bubble standards. I think Green Bay can do it. I think they will do it if they win out. I think they will land inside the bubble. I'm still kind of disappointed they didn't get in last year. I thought that win against Virginia at home was way too downplayed by the committee simply because they didn't do it on the road. I think they were better than some of the teams that they did take in the first four. This is a really good Green Bay team. It's just they always have a couple of games to where it's like, oh my God, how did you lose that one?
I see no shame in losing to Greg Campy. I love Greg Campy unconditionally, and I support Oakland even though they suck this year.
Yeah.
Joey, to you, is there a team we haven't mentioned yet? Maybe an Old Dominion. I mean,
I'd love to mention Old Dominion because we still have affection for Jeff Jones in my region of the country.
I think they're done.
Old Dominion has done. They were there. They were not just on the bubble. They were looking at an 8 and 9 seed, and then last week happened.
Good.
It's a double clusing.
It was a double clusing, and right now, the good news is, Conference USA actually has some decent-looking type wins when you come along. Whether it's a UTEP, Louisiana Tech, but they need to now go out and they can't do it. They can't lose any more games like they have.
Okay, I got a team from CUSA that's not near the bubble now, but I do think they're playing as well as anyone, maybe better than anyone. And if they do win out, they have 5 losses. If they do win out, or even if they drop one, and they get it done on the road, which means winning in places like UTEP, Old Dominion, Western Kentucky. If they now they're not near the bubble now. I'm not saying they are. What I am saying is that I think they are playing well enough, and they have just enough chances to where if they only drop one the rest of the way, I think they can get in.
A huge game coming up Thursday night. They're at Louisiana Tech. That's the type of win they need to get there.
They have to have that. And again, if you don't get that, then it's that one they have to have.
Well, and conversely, a huge one on Saturday, you can't lose to Southern Miss. You cannot lose a sub-300 game.
Right.
It goes without saying. I've only seen this Western Kentucky team once this year, and it was the Louisville game, and I was really impressed. So, I mean, I'm a fan of what they got going on. They have a great home court advantage. But, I mean, I really they got that game at UAB in a couple weeks, or actually it's almost a month. I really see that as a big potential landmine because that's not a game they can lose and say they're a tournament team. But this is a UAB team that has shown it can rise to occasion. I mean, not often.
Looked pretty good the last couple weeks. They look good Saturday. Shot over 70% in that game.
So all
now
right,
they're the top forward on campus.
Yeah.
One more huge game I think we need to mention with these mid-major teams coming up on Saturday. Wichita State's at Northern Iowa. A huge, great game there.
And again, let's talk about it. These are two first ballot teams. I think they have a chance, albeit an outside. Wichita definitely. Can Northern Iowa get a protected seat? This is a good Northern Iowa team. Wow. I mean, this is
they might
wait Saturday to do it, David, or they're not going to get it. Plain simple. I mean, you put them in front VCU or Northern Iowa.
No, I think VCU's 3-4 line range.
Well, that's what I'm
just saying.
3 or 4. That's my point. Is you're putting, but VCU's ahead of them. There's going to be teams that rise up, as we all know from the big conferences, because they make runs. At this time last year, I'll use Virginia as an example. Virginia wasn't even sniffing yet a protected seed at this point, but yet they moved up to a 1. You're going to see teams move up, whether it's a Louisville here or an Ohio State there, or that just come on with a charge from big conferences, and not a lot of droppage. I don't see your Notre Dames, of the world dropping out of the protected seed class very easily.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the Missouri Valley. I don't think both teams are going to be a protected seed. Not Wichita State, Northern Iowa.
I think the winner of this.
One of them can be, but I think that team may need to sweep all 3 games, including the conference tournament. At least win 2 out of 3 head-to-head.
Fair enough.
All right. I guess real quick before we head into the most important discussion tonight, I'm glad you brought that game up. Very important.
We didn't hit the Atlantic 10. And
I referred to VCU as a mid-major earlier. I apologize. The A10 is a great league. They're not a mid-major. They're above that.
Yeah.
There's a league that begins with an A that's a mid-major. It ain't them and it ain't the ACC. And now I'm just going to go cry in a corner under 3 feet of snow. But, yeah, you want to take a look at the A10 right now. I mean, VCU, I think, is the class of the league. But Dayton just keeps doing it somehow.
Yeah, they do.
With no tall humans. Dayton continue. I mean, they had the tough loss. They lost last Tuesday at Davidson by 17. Davidson's really good, and I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, Davidson is awesome. Take my whiskey. But anyway, Davidson has not lost at home. I don't think they're going to lose at home. I think Dayton gets into the field. I think it's a real struggle. I could actually see them dropping out. Now, again, I say this all the time. This is Archie Miller's best coaching job ever. Better than the Elite Eight. He has a very thin bench. He has midgets, and yet they go out there and they compete and they fight and they win. I know that they've had to sweat out a lot of games against non-tournament teams, but it doesn't matter. Like, they've won all the games they're supposed to win. I think they get in. I like this George Washington team a lot.
I agree.
This is a really good GW team, and I like Davidson's. I mean, Davidson again went to the bakery. Don't do that. If the Surgeon General should really issue warnings against scheduling as weak as that out of conference. Davidson's going to get a 4 or a 5 seed, hands down. But I mean, they really could have been a 1.
I'm sorry. Someone say something. I was having a drink now.
Okay, in all seriousness, me and Chad having some fun, but I could see Davidson is on the bubble. I could see them getting inside of it. This league got 6 last year. They could get 4 this year.
I think Davidson's inside the bubble right now.
I don't think they are, because look at Davidson and seriously looking at them here. Yeah. They have the home win over Dayton. They really have no other. They have no other win against anybody that's even being mentioned for a bid. And they have. I mean, they don't have any bad losses, but they don't have that. They don't have the wins that they need. Really, and I mean, they're going to have a few chances. It's not going to come until late February, where they play at Rhode Island and home against GW and VCU 3 straight games. I think they may have to take 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 4 because they play GW twice still. 2 out of those 4 games to really be in consideration, even because you can't go to the tournament go in with 1 win.
Yeah, they do. They have to pile up some more. But I'm saying right now, a lot of teams don't like. I keep on picking on Ohio State. Now they have 1 or 2. Sort of thing.
Right, but and 1 win by Ohio State
right now would really break down.
I think Ohio State 1 win beating Indiana is enough to boost them over a team that beat Dayton at home.
Right.
I'll tell you this for Davidson coming up.
If you actually look at the teams that you would be pushing out, I'm sorry, I put in Davidson over Alabama. And that's what a line kind of is. Look at it.
No,
at least where my line.
I've got Davidson looking like a team that's out, with the teams that are in above it being teams like Kansas State, Ohio State, Michigan State, Wyoming.
Bruce Weber coaches them.
I'll be the first one to admit I have Michigan State out right now after last.
And Tulsa.
Okay, yeah. We'll get to them in a second.
No, we won't. I don't want to talk about Tulsa.
If we're going to talk Tulsa, we might as well talk Wofford because the Citadel versus.
I'm so confident in Frank Haith's ability to blow them up with their remaining schedule and conference being very helpful to that.
I agree with that. Who in the American is inside the bubble? I was down on Cincinnati.
Before we move to that,
SMU.
Yeah.
Just SMU, right? I mean,
I think
Cincinnati is. I have been persuaded.
I really do think UConn will get there just because of the way the conference schedule is. But God,
I think UConn will get there if they buy tickets.
UConn. Oh, stop it! They're hosting the conference tournament, so that helps. UConn has a huge road game Thursday at Cincinnati. If they can get that, they have no excuse not to build up a 5-game win streak because after that they have the landmine known as Greenville, North Carolina on the road. But that's a big game for UConn coming up. They still haven't played SMU yet, so I still think they have chances.
But they have to go back to Houston again before East Carolina, and they had a little trouble there last year, didn't they?
Yeah. Let me tell you, it was a lot more raucous New Year's Eve party as a result of that game in terms of my intake of alcohol after that shit storm. But in the A10, it's worth mentioning Davidson right now has played the 5th toughest in-conference schedule. VCU has played the 11th toughest, Dayton the 12th, and George Washington the 14th. So the way out from here, Davidson has a much easier road to go in conference than the top 3 teams. So
Davidson needs a tougher road because they need to pick up quality wins.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking gaudy schedule. But what if Davidson wins the A10 regular season title, which is
then they're in. Wouldn't you think they would have to be?
My point is,
I'd agree on that.
Then they will have collected something Chad was saying, I think.
Well, will they? Because the remainder of the way in terms
there's
of
no
good
way the
teams,
first place team is not getting in.
Yeah,
I agree. But if they
happen to the Pac-12,
if the rest of the way they win the crap games, split GW, and win at home over VCU, a home win over VCU is, that's it, right?
That's pretty good, though.
It is, but I'm just saying.
Got GW, a tournament team, bubble team right there, and then you have Dayton. That's 3 tournament wins right there, or 2 and a half.
That's fair. Well, I'd certainly rather have them other than any American team other than UConn, only because I'm selfish. This SMU team is going to fall apart. I still believe this house of cards is coming down.
Who is SMU?
Tulsa doesn't even have... Well,
you think SMU is going to fall apart? I think they look better now than they've looked all year.
Yeah, but, they're losing players, NCAA investigations, and they still have, they still have Cincinnati. They have the 2 games against the terror that is Tulsa. And the 2 UConn games. Fall apart was extreme. Fall apart was extreme. I do like SMU more than Tulsa. Tulsa, just God. You lost to Southeast Oklahoma State. I know we can't consider it, but
no, you can't. They absolutely can.
Can they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on the. Yeah, you can look at. They can consider anything. It's not an exhibition game.
It counts. It's just not factored in for RPI numbers.
Yeah, it's on the team sheet. It's on the pro. Yeah, they know about that. The committee is aware of that.
It looks like a 300-plus loss in their eyes.
All right, Joby, I'm about to do a shot of rum here, and I'm doing it for when you tell me what seed you currently have Tulsa at.
Out.
All right, or SMU at.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me pull it up.
You're gonna have to scroll a while. Oh, God.
No, I don't have to. I don't have to scroll a while. I have them as an 8.
Oh, I know, but
that's okay, Lee. I've got SMU sitting at a 5 and Tulsa sitting at an 11 right now. So
I'm just trying to think how many games will an American Conference team play in the tournament in white uniforms, and I'm thinking the over/under is 0.5 because even if SMU gets in, 5 is. If they get a 5, they'll have run the table. It's hard for me to see them getting up that high because even the good wins they can get aren't like. It's just tough for me, even if SMU wins out, because there's so little there. The American is still. There are some Central Florida, South Florida, East Carolina. I don't even think these are real places, yet alone programs. I don't just. Oh God! Let's move on to more important matters, gentlemen. Florida A&M.
Can we just get the Mountain West in literally? We have 90 seconds to spend on it.
I was gonna say we're right now. I've actually had a timer running.
Okay,
David, we're at 1:17. So yes, we can go to the Mountain West and then the important Centenary Award standings up there.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Mountain West.
Wait. Yes, I want to because the 2 are similar. The Mountain West. Oh God. There are some sad
It's a good
stories.
segue from Mountain West to Centenary, the bottom of it. So.
Oh my God, the bottom of the Mountain West. It looks like the bottom of the Southland.
I'll tell you though, I said
Jose
it last.
State.
You all want to focus on last week when I said that Georgia Tech was a deceiving 0-5 in the ACC. All right, I might have been wrong on that one. I'll give you that one. But I'll tell you something. Fresno State on the road is no picnic.
No, I've been to Fresno. It's awful.
No, I really do genuinely though. You all know how much I love Wyoming historically. Joey, I assume you're penciling them in right now as at least
I actually have Wyoming as my first out, believe it or not.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to make the case.
But I'll tell you, they are very, very tempting to put in. I'm not going to lie.
Why is their RPI so low?
The win at Colorado State is the one thing that you look at with Wyoming because Colorado State's lost twice all season.
I agree,
Colorado
Chad.
State, yeah, had a big win. That was a fun one over the weekend against San Diego State.
Right.
Yeah, I think both those teams are in the rankings, or is it just Colorado State now?
Just Colorado State.
Okay, I think they're
Both
both
are right
safely inside the bubble.
Right.
Wyoming is on the bubble. I don't think there's anybody else, is there?
No.
No, and I want to give
Okay.
a shout out to Joby here because he hears it all the time for all the bitching people want to do about, oh, Virginia plays too slow, they're slow. I'll tell you what, I'd rather see a team play slow on offense than whatever the fuck San Diego State does on offense. Because holy shit,
San Diego State, Wyoming.
they are
David,
so
I need another drink of yours.
oh, they're bad. Oh, on offense, San Diego State. I love bad basketball, but God, like I have to have expectations of it going in, and San Diego State's so good defensively. Like, how can there be 170 place difference? Steve Fisher, what are you doing? Stop it! I don't want. I'll say it, Joey. I do not want San Diego State in the tournament. I don't care what the profile is. Just, for the sake of the sport, they can't get in. They're gonna every bad story about how bad offense is that you have to deal with as a Virginia fan is gonna be even worse when San Diego State somehow is like a 7 seed. I'm already upset about it.
Could you imagine it being a 7 seed versus either a Wisconsin or Virginia 2 seed?
No, it'd be great because they might actually get shut out by Virginia. Like they might legitimately score 0 points. They might. I watched the UConn women were at Cincinnati this weekend. It was on ESPN2. They led 22-0 with 7 minutes to go in the first half, and I legitimately thought they might not allow a point in the first half. That is what I would expect watching San Diego State play Virginia. And it's not necessarily respect for Virginia as much as San Diego State's offense makes me hate people. It's just that bad. And speaking
I don't
of
like people either, but
another fucking round of applause for the bang-up job that Dave Rice continues to do out at UNLV. Big OT home win over Utah State. Stu Morrill, who's already scouting out which beach villa he's going to buy in Hawaii. I mean, just God, Joby. Last week I said it, and I stand by it. Dave Rice could recruit an Eskimo to an iceberg, and then would tell it its best course of action when arriving on the iceberg is to jump into the ocean. It's just, there's, oh, God, I really think that's what's killing the Mountain West. UNLV is bad. Air Force is struggling. Utah State way down. Boise State not able to be what they were a couple years ago. New Mexico is down.
Are you a little surprised Leon Rice has not been able to get it going there? I really thought he would. I know he went to one tournament, but they've been.
I am. I really am.
I am too.
But at the same time, I mean, you know, their non-conference schedule isn't bad. They go to Wisconsin. They didn't look that bad.
They didn't. I mean,
I think Boise is mediocre. I don't think they're awful.
No, they're not awful. I'm just saying I thought this would be a team that was, inside the bubble more often than not. This
is an experienced team with a very good senior guard in Derek Marks and a good schedule out of conference. But, I mean, they didn't just lose to Loyola Chicago. They lost 48-45. I mean, God, where's the whiskey?
Well, Chad stole mine. But, again, I think Leon Ricer thought he was a good coach. It's a well-supported program and a good conference. I'm just a little surprised that they're never in the picture. And they're not. They're not this year. So.
Well, no. Now, hold on a minute. Now,
20 or 30 teams out, it seems like, and not worse, not better. Yeah, they're an NIT order team.
Now, let's not cast aspersions. Leon Rice still could be a good coach. If we've learned nothing else this year from the job Bill Harrion has done at New Hampshire, it's that, sometimes it takes 13 years to get a program going. As he has UNH at 11-9 overall in his 13th season at New Hampshire. Oh my God! And
it's tough being the second best team in the state of New Hampshire.
It really is. It's even worse when the other one is Dartmouth. Oh God! And with that, we're coming up on an hour and a half. We might as well close it out with an update in the grandest award that we have, the Centenary Award. New Hampshire has never been farther out of consideration. I am so proud of the Wildcats. They are nowhere near consideration, but
nowhere is Maine anymore.
But their rivals to the east most certainly are the Maine Black Bears.
No, not with the win at Hartford.
Oh God, no, it happened. It happened. I almost forgot it happened.
The Hartford announcers called it the upset of the century.
God, and they weren't far off. You know what? By the way, real quick tangent. You guys all enjoyed when I was at that awful Centenary Award game at the America East
Yes.
Tournament?
Oh, it was fabulous. It's the most fun I've ever had.
The other game that night was Hartford hosting Maine. Hartford beat Maine in the quarterfinals and stormed the floor. That whole evening was like that.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, I think we watched the whole thing.
Well, some of us closer than others, my friend.
Yeah.
If I can, while we're talking Centenary, just throw a quick score update right now.
Please do.
Texas Southern, who lost to Arkansas Pine Bluff over the weekend, is now down 2 to Mississippi Valley State. Is the worst team in the track, other than Grambling, in double overtime right now.
So what you're saying is that might be bad for Michigan State's computer rankings.
And Kansas State.
And kids. Oh God. All right. So Florida A&M is still hanging strong now at 0-20. You've got Central Arkansas at 0-18. You've got Grambling at a very misleading 2-15. The aforementioned Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils at 2-17. And making a surge to the bottom, ladies and gentlemen, the San Jose State Spartans, having lost by 50 at
they're
Boise
not going to
State
have the
last week.
They're not going to have the quality losses. They're not going to have the sub 300 losses.
Joby, you weren't here last week. Here's my San Jose State case. They're 2-17, and both wins would not show up on an NCAA tournament resume computer. Both non-Division I wins. They're 0-17 as far as the Centenary Award is concerned. I still am taking San Jose State. Chad, your thoughts?
I actually have San Jose State in third place above Grambling right now. You made a very convincing argument to me last week that Grambling actually played a very difficult non-conference schedule, way tougher than San Jose State.
You mean the third strongest in the country?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that is strong.
Notre Dame, actually, that's one of Notre Dame's RPI poisons. What is Notre Dame doing playing Grambling?
we talked about
Could you schedule Coppin State instead? Could you schedule North Carolina A&T? Those extra 30 spots mean so much. It's one thing if it has a 3 on the resume. When it has a 3 followed by a 5, there's only 2 of them. There's only 2 of them. Joby, do you have any thoughts? I know you've been busy living the lavish life on James Madison Quad with the Who's this year, but some of us down here deal with the filth.
The wonderful goose egg that is FAMU. When you're at 0, you're at 0. I mean, plain and simple. It's tough to argue.
Yeah, for those important, FAMU's non-conference strength of schedule 261. Central Arkansas, who has the other goose egg, 216. San Jose State, who has a goose egg, even though it's 2-17, 201. It is a really tight 3-team race.
It's not that tight because FAMU
is blowing past everyone.
I really think a FAMU win is still worse than
I can't remember ever
San
seeing
Jose.
a team whose KenPom was .0211 and having another team within 0.005 of a point. I mean, this is magical stuff.
FAMU has lost not once but twice to the team ranked 347 in the RPI.
Oh, I mean, how many times did America's team
It's sort of like asking which state is the most northern, and then debating on whether or not it's Alaska. It's FAMU.
No, I mean, I'll tell you, America's team lost twice to Lowell, but that's okay because they bounced back and won at Michigan.
That's the people.
NJIT update. They're definitely not in contention for the Centenary Award. I'm trying to pull up their profile and see what they did over the weekend.
They won. They went to South Alabama and won.
Ladies and gentlemen, their KenPom ranking is above 15 conferences. Just saying, 12-10. Their next game is against Hampton. Should be a win. Jim Engels, keep doing what you do. That CIT brass ring is up there.
We want the CIT. It's the team of the people in JIT.
Oh, with that, we come to the close, mercifully, of another exceptional edition of the Bracket Racket on Hoops HD. Joby, Chad, David, thank you for joining us. Joby, I'm glad we got you on here. It's nice that I get a chance to say goodbye to all of you with the storm that is just I take it not as bad in Virginia, and if they can airlift me out like the end of MASH, I might come join you, Joe, because we're going to get a little bit of snow.
Yeah. Stay warm, stay safe, stay fed.
And that goes out to everybody else. Thanks for joining us. So long, everybody.